bold, colorful, stylized art.
We want that kind of just surprising, dangerous mystery.
We've brought a little bit of groundedness, a little bit of grit, a little bit of darkness.
The classic Bungie game feel, where you are blasting stuff in the face and it feels amazing.
We're combining the best of that Bungie touch and feel gameplay, but we're adding that incredible tension and these emotional highs and lows.
You make the best things on the shoulders of giants. And in our case, those giants are Halo and Destiny. The team's been leveraging 30 years of experience and innovation and passion.
It takes all the aspects that I think Bungie is really good at. First-person feel and gunplay, the super deep, crazy sci-fi lore, and it mixes up all those things together in a really amazing PvP package.
That it still feels amazing. It still feels like it has that spark.
That is what we're trying to live up to with Marathon.
I get a weird feeling when I watch a titan of the games industry, a studio that has been the architect of some of the industry's golden standards, have what can only be described as a creative midlife crisis. Instead of creating trends, they start chasing them. If I asked you, who is the most influential video game studio, you might say the obvious answers like Nintendo, Naughty Dog, FromSoft, Kojima, Blizzard, and maybe Valve. There is one developer that I think also deserves to be on that list: Bungie. Bungie is one of the most influential developers in the space. Starting with Halo Combat Evolved in 2001, the game not only changed the way people control your character by standardizing the dual analog stick layout by moving the aiming controls to the right stick, but also took a sledgehammer to the walk-in closet inventory of games like Doom or Quake by limiting the player to just 2 weapons, a tactical constraint that almost every shooter has followed since. Moving to 2004, Halo 2 is bar none the architect and foundation for the online social architecture that gamers take for granted today. No scrolling endlessly through servers to find the one you want and then hoping there's enough space for your friends. In Halo 2, just create a party with your friends and then click Find Game. Does this sound familiar? Then came Halo 3. No game up to this point had the cultural movement that Halo had. This game rivaled movie launches. People lined the streets outside game stores to get the game. But Halo 3 changed gaming culture. Logging onto Bungie.net to browse the community file shares, it was a hub for everything the community could come up with for Halo. Infected variants like Fat Kid, bizarre physics maps like Donkey Kong, and of course Griffball, a game mode referencing Red vs. Blue. But Bungie wasn't just a one-trick pony with Halo. Bungie made Destiny, the holy matrimony of MMOs like World of Warcraft, with that FPS magic that Bungie was known for. And the release of the game was okay.
This should lead us right to the grave. The world's grave, not ours.
I like living.
I mean, The Taken King was a 10 out of 10. Destiny 2 was a game that was released.
Sacrifice leads to death. So, feel free to kill yourself.
Okay, in all seriousness, Destiny 2 offered something that no other game in the industry has offered. And for that, it's special. And the game had its ups and downs, but after the final shape, I stopped playing it, and so did most of the player base. Until in 2026 when Bungie killed development for the game. So when it was rumored that Bungie was reviving an old franchise of theirs, everyone scrambled to figure out what one it would be. No, they weren't. It was Marathon. Everyone knew it was Marathon. Okay, so why did I skip this game and start with Halo? Well, so I could spring it on you here, obviously. But was it actually influential? Yes, because it proved shooters could have a brain. Released in 1994, Marathon traded mindless action for environmental storytelling. Scattered terminals filled the gaps with a bleak, incredibly detailed narrative about a human colony, an alien invasion force, and the chaotic philosophy of AI rampancy.
I will not allow you to leave this planet!
No, wrong franchise. Shooters around the same time like Doom were focused on the action, the rhythm, and brutality. Marathon was focused on the world and you, playing a security officer. Creative name. Games like Half-Life or BioShock don't exist without Marathon. The thinking man's shooter, if you will. So, Bungie reviving the grandpappy of narrative shooters is exciting. A new, deep, single-player epic to save the studio. Wait, what? No, you're kidding. They made a PvP extraction shooter. Okay, that's a bit unfair. To be perfectly clear, the new Marathon is fun. Like a lot of fun. It's also got that Bungie polish that you'd expect. The game feels good, it looks good. I'll touch on that later. Before I spend the rest of the video talking about the negatives, I feel it is important to give credit where it's due. Marathon, Halo, and Destiny, they all have something so intangible that leaves us, the gamers, to conclude that it's Bungie magic. Some wizardry that us mere mortals can't comprehend. And the new Marathon has remnants of that magic. The gunplay, something that no previous Bungie title has done poorly, is still top-notch in this game. Every gunfight, whether it's against the UESC bots or other runners in PvP, every shot feels crisp, and the feedback you get as the player through the sounds, it activates neurons in a way that a no-scope in Halo does.
Nice.
The movement feels good, almost second nature. You can't deny the game's art is unique. Like, it's not sexy, but it's unique, in a good way. The art design, it's almost a mix of the environment of Mirror's Edge with Destiny. A clash of clean, solid color, blocky look of runners and weapons, and the UESC infrastructure. I mean, look at it. It's like Lego. And all of that blockiness and cleanliness clashes with the natural environment of Tau Ceti 4 to create a unique environment that immerses you into an interesting world similar to the original. Unfortunately, here comes the problems. It's missing something. If we look at other games in this genre, they have something that Marathon is just missing. But this is where I'm about to lose credibility. I still don't know what it is. Okay, let me explain before you click off. If you aren't familiar with the extraction genre, it's an offshoot of the Battle Royale genre where you and an arbitrary amount of players are plopped onto a map. But unlike a Battle Royale where the goal is to be the last one standing, extraction shooters usually have you doing some quest on the map or finding loot and getting out of the map alive with you and your newfound trinkets. You can avoid everyone and try and hide, or you can bring in your best gear and try and destroy everything that moves. The caveat is that anything you die with, you lose forever. This genre of game was popularized by the game Escape from Tarkov, but Tarkov was a bit too hardcore for a lot of gamers as it was intended to be a realistic military simulator in the same breath as Arma or Squad.
Hey, so how's the war going for you guys?
I can't wait to go back home and see my mom.
If I compare Marathon with Tarkov, Tarkov trying to be more realistic has the problem of accessibility. Take something simple like player movement. Marathon has that Bungie magic of being able to control your runner with relative ease, making it so that you can experience the game with little friction. Tarkov is the other end of that spectrum. Let me be clear about what realistic movement is in Tarkov. The first couple of raids, controlling your PMC is like a fawn trying to walk for the first time. Your PMC walks like he's too drunk to tell the officer that he's not drive drunking. Taking a look at the history of the extraction genre, Marathon isn't the first, second, or even third game to attempt this genre. If we skip over survival games like DayZ, the first attempt at this genre was in 2016 with The Division. I know, it shocked me too when I found this out. Then Tarkov shortly after, then Hunt Showdown, the Cycle Frontier. At this point, the AAA devs caught on, and EA thought Battlefield needed one. Marauders, COD Warzone DMZ, Dark and Darker, that one was unique. Grey Zone Warfare, Arena Breakout Infinite, Level 0 Extraction, Delta Force, Arc Raiders, and then Marathon. So, needless to say, the genre's pretty saturated. Some of these games are unique, others are just derivatives of the previous games. Arena Breakout is very derivative of Tarkov. A lot of these games are just other developers attempting at doing the realistic military extraction shooter that Tarkov already did. But games like Hunt, Dark and Darker, Arc Raiders are very unique. And you might be saying, that's great, but what does any of these games have to do with Marathon? Well, all of these games can be further broken down into subgenres, or themes. And each of these subgenres have a de facto king. Tarkov is the hardcore military extraction shooter. For sci-fi, it seems that Arc Raiders has monopolized not only the sci-fi genre, but also is the everyman's extraction shooter. To fully beat this to death, Tarkov is for the unemployed going through their third divorce after losing yet another custody battle, and Arc Raiders is for everyone else. So where does Marathon fit in? Well, as I said earlier, Marathon's controls are more accessible than Tarkov, so it's closer to Arc Raiders. Sort of. Because the extraction genre has some similarities to Battle Royales, I feel like I can use those games to explain what's going on here. Tarkov is similar to PUBG, the military game where gunplay is the main focus. Arc Raiders is Fortnite, the more accessible noob-friendly game. So, that would make Marathon Apex Legends. Both are sci-fi, both mix hero shooter abilities with their respective genres. So, why does Apex Legends work but Marathon doesn't? It worked because Apex Legends knows what it is, a hero-based battle royale capturing the hero shooter and the battle royale audience. Marathon is an extraction shooter trying to capture the Destiny audience, the hardcore extraction audience, and the hero shooter audience, where the extraction shooter audience is looking for an experience completely different from the other two. This audience split is emblematic of the game's identity crisis. As should be assumed at this point, the movement and gunplay in Marathon is phenomenal, top notch. Even the abilities feel second nature. Oh, wrong.
Hello?
Yep, fair enough. Okay, that's the wrong clip. I'm just bad. Marathon borrowed a lot more from Apex than just having hero abilities. It also sometimes straight up copied Legends abilities. The Recon Shell has a scan ability similar to Bloodhound and Apex. Triage is the team medic similar to Lifeline. Now, I want to make this clear. Just because something works for another game doesn't mean it will work for yours. Apex is a battle royale. The core goal of the game, even if you hide for 99% of the match, is to fight and kill the last squad, meaning that combat is at the core goal of the game. To win, you have to kill. An extraction shooter, the core goal of the game is not to kill to win. It is to complete quests and to extract. And unless you're doing a quest that requires PvP, not running into another player while getting to the loot is optimal. That is sort of a problem. Apex has designed its Legends abilities around this idea of always looking for a fight, but you don't always want to fight in an extraction shooter. When the mechanical core of your game is at odds with the optimal strategy of your genre, that's an identity crisis. But Marathon wasn't designed as a solo experience. Using the Apex Legends comparison again, the two games are similar in more than just the characters. They both have a max squad size of 3, and playing this game in a squad changes Marathon's experience entirely.
Oh, you found them?
Yep. Right here.
Threat marked.
And up top. These guys are gonna drop all the...
Down. Oh. Back one. Down one. Keep push. One down. Other down. Right there, on ping. Cracked one. Downed him. Eat that one, asshole. That grenade was for you.
That Vandal fucked up.
You res this boy?
Yeah, we have the other body.
Boy's dead again.
Nice.
Squads is where Marathon thrives. When I played this game as solo, all of my critiques of the gameplay had come from the perspective of solo player. In an extraction shooter, or any game like it, such as Battle Royales, when alone, you always want to be the one in control of the engagements. When you are caught out in the open, your survival boils down to your ability to get to cover and reset the encounter. Or, if your opponent can't aim. I think it's time to retire. Unfortunately, I'm not always going to be the one shooting at you. I'm not saying that the solo experience is necessarily bad. What I am saying that is if you ask two people to describe Marathon to you, one who played only solo and one who played only squads, you would get two completely different descriptions of the game. And it is evident by not only the game's design, but also in its endgame content that Bungie intends for you to play this game with friends. For those of you that don't know, Marathon's endgame is a map called Cryo Archive. Cryo Archive is Marathon's vision manifested.
It's going to test every aspect of the survival game. Probably going to be forced to run to players in ways you haven't been on other maps.
Cryo Archive has the game's highest level of loot, meaning a successful run nets you gold level loot. That high level loot is locked behind vaults that require rare keys to open. And because it has a high level of loot, people come in with their best gear. That means that PvP in Cryo is Bungie's gameplay mechanics pushed to its limits. There's also a boss called the Compiler that appeases the Destiny crowd. To top it all off, the map is only open to the player base on weekends starting on Thursday. Which I think is a good idea as it gives you a week to get new loadouts and gear to lose again in Cryo. There is one caveat to all this though. Cryo Archive is not open to solo players. You are forced into squads to play the endgame content. This directly says everything. Marathon is an extraction shooter balanced around squads and intended to be played in squads. Bungie's vision for Marathon's gameplay is squads and not solo. But then why offer solo in the first place? Well, that's simple, because other extraction shooters offer a solo experience. Solo is intrinsic to an extraction shooter's identity, but not Marathon's. Look, I know I've been beating the solos versus squads drum for a while now, but stick with me, because it perfectly illustrates what Bungie pulled off here. They made Apex Legends into an extraction shooter, and it somehow works. That's not nothing. Marathon, when played in squads, the way Bungie obviously intended it to be, is an amazing experience that still captures that Bungie magic. But what it isn't, is Bungie pioneering a genre. As I played Marathon, I could tell that Bungie magic was still there. The gunplay crisp, the movement is fluid, and the world is immersive. All of the maps have their own theme that distinguishes them from one another while still undeniably being from the same universe in looks and feel. At launch there was Perimeter, Dire Marsh, Outpost, and Cryo Archive, all maps that each bring a different environment for you to die in. And Cryo Archive is especially cool in fulfilling Bungie's vision because that map is set on the Marathon ship. You know, the name of the game. That, however, is my segue into the undeniable reality that Bungie as a pioneer of the video game industry is in its twilight years. If I showed this game to you with all its branding removed and you didn't know what it was, how many guesses do you think it would take for you to guess Marathon? 6? Maybe 7? Sorry. There is nothing in this game that on the face screams Marathon. Just to really hammer this home, look at a game like Wolfenstein and Doom. These games had reboots or sequels, or whatever we're calling them, years after their initial 90s shooter era success. But these games look like they belong to their franchises, just modern interpretations of the themes now in HD. But Marathon, it doesn't look like its 90s counterpart. Bungie didn't make Marathon an extraction shooter because the IP demanded it or needed it. They needed an IP to sell a trend, and Marathon was the tarp they threw over it. When an industry titan is using an old IP to package a trend, That constitutes a dissonance in game identity. But Bungie is still Bungie. They didn't release a bad game. The game's art style is phenomenal, even if it was stolen. Extracting from a raid with loot releases dopamine that keeps me gambling my kits at the chance for more loot. Marathon is not even a mediocre game. Marathon is, dare I say, a great game. And I hate having to keep saying that, but it's true. But Marathon is not a pioneer in its respective genre like Bungie titles before. It didn't innovate. It amalgamated ideas from two different games to create a fun and polished experience. If I were to describe Marathon to someone who doesn't know what it is, I would tell them it's Apex Legends but an extraction shooter. There's nothing in the game mechanics-wise that makes me go, yeah, that idea is fantastic. I hope other developers copy that. For example, everything the runners bring to the table with its abilities have been done before by Apex Legends, and even titles like Valorant. Cryo Archive as the endgame loot map is no different in its functionality to maps like Labs in Tarkov. Both maps are high-risk, high-reward maps where everyone is bringing their best loadouts to try and get all the high-value loot. And even the compiler, the boss from Cryo Archive, it looks like an in-between of a strike boss and a raid boss from Destiny. Which isn't necessarily bad, but it's not a new idea. I say that this game has an identity crisis not because it's bad, but because for Bungie to release a game in what is now a saturated market, it needed to stand out with more than just the title Marathon. It is competing with Arc Raiders, Tarkov, Destiny, Apex Legends, as Marathon offers something for all of these player bases. However, being an amalgamation doesn't have to be a death sentence. For the players who hope for the best of Marathon, I wanted to bring up a game that, although not from the same pedigree as Bungie, was able to make a game that was also an amalgamation of multiple games and succeeded. Let's go back to the year of 2015. Ubisoft just released a game that was unfinished, and it had left longtime fans of the franchise confused. I know, crazy. However, Siege is now considered one of the healthier live service games. Now, just like Marathon, I can describe Siege using other games. Rainbow Six Siege is Counter-Strike mixed with Team Fortress 2 and a sprinkle of Call of Duty. Siege was a departure from previous Rainbow Six titles. Rainbow Six historically was a tactical narrative-based shooter based off Tom Clancy's books of the same name. Siege, like Marathon, used nostalgia to release a game that had nothing to do with, other than in name, the franchise it was named after. When Siege launched, it was not met with high praise. And I've been holding out on mentioning this until now, but Siege's player count was not stellar at launch, neither is Marathon's. But, and it's a big but, Siege hit its first big player spike 3 years after release in 2018. Then broke that peak in 2020, then in 2021, and then again in 2024. These are just Steam numbers, so arguably the game was even healthier than I can see with Uplay numbers and console numbers adding on to that. Siege on release was a good to okay game, but it did need a little bit of help to get better. So the Siege developers decided to have Operation Health, an event in Siege which was solely designed at fixing the game. A 3-month period of where no new content was dropped and every update was focused on game bugs, server upgrades, and game stability. Then in 2018, they launched Operation Chimera, which sparked the first player base spike. Chimera was when Siege added a limited time PvE zombie mode. This mode was so successful that Ubisoft released that mode in Rainbow Six Siege Extraction as a standalone, which didn't do that well, but don't worry about that.
I know what you're wondering. What's in the canister? I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
Just ignore that game and pay attention to Operation Chimera. Nothing in Siege's core gameplay changed drastically in the 3 years it took to hit its first peak. And I think for Marathon, the same idea applies. The core of the game is solid. Bungie just has to figure out what Marathon needs to succeed the way Siege did. I hope that I can look back at this video in a few years and see that I was right about Marathon being able to revive itself the way Siege did. But I can't help but notice the writing on the wall for Bungie. They went from an industry titan, an unstoppable force where every release created a blueprint for other developers to copy. Maybe I'm biased, But Halo will forever be one of, if not my all-time favorite franchises, ever. Destiny alike has created memories with my friends that are valuable to me as a person today. I'm not old enough to have experienced the original Marathon, but I imagine for those who owned a Macintosh in 1994, it was a unique experience like no other. Bungie didn't just create games. Bungie titles were pivotal moments in gaming, as we would be on the edge of our seat waiting to see what fire of knowledge Bungie would bestow upon us mere mortals. I remember coming home from school and playing custom games on Halo 3 and Reach with my friends, or not studying and doing my schoolwork because Iron Banner was on in Destiny 2. I hope I'm wrong. But to me it looks like Bungie is in its twilight years, and Marathon feels like proof of that. Marathon is a good game that still captures that waning Bungie magic, but it's not a game that continues the legacy of Bungie as an industry pioneer.